How about that?
That's great.
Oh, yeah, it's something. Oh, I'm not accustomed to it, but here we are. We're coming in. Coming in.
Okay.
Good morning and welcome to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily the views of this station, but strictly of our host and his guest. To speak with Reverend Jackson live,
Thank you,
call
Jeremy.
toll
Let's have a
free
great show. I can't hear
1-866-59
anything. You don't have me out?
HOPE. That's
You gonna buy 'em up?
1-866-594.
Hey, I don't hear myself in the mic.
Because your mic is
It's
not
not
on.
on.
Reverend
Not on.
Jesse
Thank
Jackson.
you. I'm not going to leave any more music to you, Jeremy.
What?
None. This is so tongue in cheek, but stay right here. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Santita Jackson. Reverend Jackson will be joining us shortly. It's Sunday, September 11th, 2022. 21 years to the day since the tragic attacks of September 11th. Our hearts and prayers and love go out to all of the families directly impacted. And of course, it changed our world, changed our world. God bless us all. And we had two big events this week. Of course, Bernard Shaw, the inaugurating anchor of CNN, changed the face along with Max Robinson of Network News. We can hardly remember a time, at least those of us of this particular generation, when blacks were not prominently featured on the news. For a black reporter to get a national assignment was huge. That was something that Reverend Jackson fought for when he ran for president. For black reporters to be able to get the assignment to even cover his campaign. He said they're there. They're not getting the assignments. But for them to anchor, Max Robinson first on ABC News, on Network News, and then Bernard Shaw on cable, Network News on a worldwide network, completely changed the face of the news. It changed the editorial content because he was someone who helped to shape the editorial narratives of the network. So we thank God for him. He died this past week at the age of 82, and let us always remember and honor his name. Because everyone, every woman, every African American, every Indian American, and the Ali Velshis, all of these people of color, this diverse lineup that you see on cable and network news now, Bernard Shaw and Max Robinson paved the way. God bless them today. This past week, we had another momentous passing. Queen Elizabeth, the longest reigning monarch in the history of Great Britain, 96, made her transition. She served for 70 years, everybody. I want you to call us at 866-594-HOPE, 866-594-4673. And we want to know what your thoughts are about this. You know, at first, as people acknowledged that this monarch had made her passing, it was just shocking. All of us, most of us have only known Queen Elizabeth. Even as Americans, people all over the world, she's just been a world leader, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, great grandmother, and in a time in which even the man who delivered her son, Prince Charles, said he was never so glad to see a male member. Can you believe that? Unbelievable. But she served and served her country and the Commonwealth for 70 years. But what about this legacy? What about this legacy? You know, as a woman, we see her particular way. She ruled, but she ruled while gently, softly. She ruled firmly, everybody, for 70 years. How did she do that? As we listen to the Queen of Soul, another queen. Now we have King Charles III. In the global West, her reign is celebrated as the epitome of social, diplomatic, and economic steadfastness and stability. But in the global South, in Africa, in India, and Asia, the Caribbean, all throughout the rest of the world, her passing has amplified growing calls for the former colonies to have reparations, to receive apologies for the transatlantic slave trade, for slavery, and all that happened there, and for the profits that are still derived from the crown, by the crown, from colonialism. After her accession in 1952, she was the head of state. There are different reports that say from 5 to 7 or 9 nations. Now it's 53 to 56 nations in the Commonwealth. Under her leadership, colonialism has been transformed, many people say, from colonialism to the Commonwealth. 56 independent countries, 94% of them are African and Asian. 21 are African, 8 are Asian, 13 Caribbean and American, 3 European, 11 Pacific, 32 small states, 25 small island developing states. And she is overseeing 2.5 billion people. 60% of that population, 29 or under. But at the same time, we're seeing more wealth leave Africa and go to London every year than enters it. More than $40 billion. Analysis by a coalition of United Kingdom and African equality and development campaigners have said we need to look at the money here, because there's been a rejiggering of the money. The money is still flowing out of Africa, not trade. Aid is flowing into Africa, in further indebting Africa, but trade is flowing out of Africa. So we need to talk about that today. What about British colonialism? Is it still alive and well? You betcha. So let's talk about that today. We're going to have a tremendous panel talk about that with us as we have precious memories. Back with more of Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Don't worry about it. Secret. Secret. Secret.
Your opinion counts. 1-866
Oh, dear.
594
Sacred secret will unfold.
594-4673.
For me,
Central banks are increasing their gold reserve due to increasing global.
I don't. Do you know Attorney C.K. Hoffler, the chair of our board, the past president of the National Bar Association? It's the largest and oldest and bar association of Black lawyers in the world. More than 66,000 of them. She's the chair of the board of Rainbow Push. She's with us this morning, and has spent a great deal of time working in throughout Africa. And we just love her and appreciate her. Attorney Robert Patillo, Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, absolutely brilliant. And I'm so glad that you're with them. And of course, we have perhaps the preeminent African specialist in the world today, Mr. Ni Akweta. And we are so glad that he is with us today, everybody. Consider yourselves well met. And we're going to bring Reverend Jackson on in a hot second.
Thank you.
He insists that I call him Nee. It's just so hard to do. But I love him. I love him so much. But absolutely brilliant. Okay. All right, everybody. People have a lot to say about this. Dave Dowley, how you doing? Bless their hearts. You can tell you're getting successful when you have trollers. CK. Mark Stevens, how you doing? Kenneth Reed, Detroit is in the house. Hey, Kenneth Reed, everybody like and share. And please tell people about us, okay? Hey, Mildred. Okay, south side of Chicago. My homie. And hello, James Hertz. Hello, Daryl Punti. Hello, how you doing? Is it, I want to pronounce your name correctly, Mr. Young. Opadaya? I hope I'm getting it. And let me see, Cynthia, how you doing? The Mau Mau vouchers here in Kenya are still awaiting reparations. I hear you. Money flowing out of Africa. Oh, that's the truth. We're going to say that here on the Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson show. So there we go. Everybody like and share the show. Like and share the show today. We have a tremendous panel with us to talk about this issue with us. And we are on Facebook Live. And so be mindful of that. But just before we go on the air, does anyone have anything to say about, I find it interesting. And Robert, are you going to be talking about this today on your show? Robert Patillo? Robert, you there?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about this, 9/11, and the Ukrainian counteroffensive today. So it's a pretty packed news day.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. Oh, what is this? Okay. 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 So, well, CK, I think it might be a little early to talk about what you're going to discuss on Tuesday, but do you have any idea what might be in the hopper? The world can change by Tuesday.
The world can change by Tuesday, but we have to at least touch on the, Bernard Shaw's passing, because that is something that I think is being underplayed in the media. And there's just no way that you can be a Black journalist or commentator and not talk about it. And I obviously couldn't talk about it on my last show, but also the passing of the Queen and what it means, similar to how we're discussing it now. Because I think that is a narrative that is not well known in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And then whatever other events come up that have legal implications. More than likely, something that could be percolating at the U.S. Supreme Court level.
Really?
Stand by.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Well, let me ask you this. Is reparations something that could go to the World Court? Well, you know what? Hold that thought until we get on the air. Okay?
Okay.
Hold that thought.
And so, I went to school in Canada every single day for 4 years in school, in high school. We sang the national anthem. Long live our gracious queen.
Say right there, hold on.
Noble queen.
That makes me think this whole thing you're doing.
So what?
Oh, God, oh, God. How did I make it over?
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. It's a joy to be with you today, September 11th, 2022, 21 years since the attacks upon the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Thank heavens those brave souls on that airplane stopped an attack upon the White House. We pray for those souls today and their families, still grieving, still trying to make sense of it all. And of course, Bernard Shaw, the inaugurating anchor of CNN. Wow, we thank God that Ted Turner helped to change just the whole face of news. Of course, one of the great unsung heroes of that is Zernona Clayton, the first African-American woman to helm her own talk show in the South. She's the woman who you saw handing Dr. King his birthday cake on his last birthday. Very active in the civil rights movement and one of the pioneers in media. And indeed, she was one of the founders of CNN, of Turner Broadcasting. Her office was right next to his, and so doubtless she had a role in that decision, and we thank God for Zernona Clayton today, who's still with us. So everybody, let's talk about Queen Elizabeth, resting in peace. But she has got quite the controversial legacy, and we're going to talk about that today. There is a headline: "Mourn the Queen, not her empire." That is from the New York Times, and then we see that. So Black Twitter went in on her so hard. Elizabeth II was an enduring emblem of the waning British Empire. That's from Smithsonian Magazine, no less. And on and on and on it goes. So let's talk about this legacy today. Let's talk about it from let's look at the whole legacy, because if you look at the Western corporate-owned media, they're conflating even monarchy, Jeremy, my technical producer here, they're conflating democracy with monarchy. Now, monarchy and democracy are diametrically opposed to one another, but they're saying, can monarchy and democracy survive, as if one has something to do with the other. It's just a very interesting time in which we find ourselves. And so, Attorney C.K. Hopler, chairwoman of the board of Rainbow Push, Attorney Robert Patillo, Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, will be on his own show on WAOK this afternoon from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. C.K. Hopler will be on WAOK on her show at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And throughout the week, before we go to Mr. Oqueta, let me ask you this. CK, when you will be on Court TV and I'm sure other networks this week, where can we find you?
Yes, you can find me on Court TV
Santita, by the time we finish the show, I'll give you the date. Twice this week. I just don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, well, you know what? I want people to continue to watch Court TV because she's a regular there and she's on MSNBC giving analysis and ABC giving analysis. And whenever you see her giving analysis, send them an email and tell them that you want to see more of her. I've said it. And when you see Robert Patillo on international television, Russian television, Chinese television, the BBC, tell them that you want to see more of him. How about that? Let's start with you. I need you to set the table for us, Mr. Equata, my father, and our dear brother, beloved of many years. Really, there's no one who has keener insight and analysis into really, you're one of the great Africanists of the world. And we just thank God that we were able to get you this morning. What about the Queen? What about her legacy? Is there anything that we're watching on television or from the Western media that might be just a little confusing?
Yes, thank you so very much for having me, and I am honored to be on this particular program, the reference program, and also to be on with my esteemed brother and sisters. Yes, there is a great deal about how the Queen's passing is being analyzed. I mean, she was the head of a big organization, in fact, stretching back hundreds of years. And she is being painted as just an individual that ruled well. As you mentioned, they keep saying she was a great monarch and that she also supervised or was part of the head of the democracy. That just that does not equate. You cannot be a monarchy as well as part of a democracy. The two are different. Democracies are based on equality of everybody and changing according to the will of the people. So the one credit I will give her, beyond the God-given blessing of her living to be almost 100 years, was that she did her job with great dedication. Because of her uncle rejecting the throne in the 30s, which forced her father, who was unprepared, to become. So she decided that she was going to do her job with great devotion, unlike her uncle, to show that you stick with the job and you do your duty. I give her credit for that. But beyond that, the system that she headed was extremely exploitative. There are so many points of entry. You know, in this country, in the United States, there are analysts and activists who will say to you that the United States has become an empire. I don't always buy that because I was born in Ghana. Ghana became an independent country in 1957. When I was born, that was before then. So I was born into the British Empire. By the way, in 1957, Dr. King visited. And when he came back, he preached and said how much Ghana's independence inspired him. And I am grateful for that because for most of the time, the African American community has actually inspired and helped and driven the African liberation. So I am thankful for that. But the point is, I was born into that empire. And I can tell you all of the horrible things that was done. But the link with people saying that the United States itself is an empire is that you cannot be an empire and a democracy. And so we need to understand what the British Empire stood for. It meant a group of soldiers from Britain showing up and taking over your country and doing everything that they wanted and governing you and changing your religion and changing your tradition, basically telling you that you are worthless, so you need someone else to govern you. This was what the Queen supervised. one of the things that she did, her father died in 1952. And at that very minute, she became queen. She was in Kenya, in East Africa, which was then also not, we are talking about 1952. So Kenya was not independent then. At that very time in Kenya, the British were killing and torturing Kenyans who were saying that the empire is wrong and they don't want to be part of it. She was there on the ground. So this idea that she did not know all the crimes that the empire committed is nobody should buy that. And again, the point with the United States is when people say the U.S. is an empire, there are people here who will put back and say, no, empire is not a good thing. We are not an empire. Be that as it may, one of the small points that people need to know is today in Great Britain, there are prominent British people who still brag, who are very proud that they had an empire on which the sun did not set, which means they went around the world killing, taking over countries, changing their tradition. And of course, one small fact is they took all the resources from there. We now have King Charles III. Watch when he rides in that royal carriage, you will see that it is gold encrusted. I have not done the research I want to do, but I'm willing to bet you much of that gold came from my own country, which used to be called the Gold Coast, and from South Africa. So I don't see anything good about empires, and my point is the British still brag about having been an empire, and the Queen was part of it. One final point. Since she died and all the coverage by the Western media, one of the things they are telling us is, oh, she was so wise, she was so well read, she was so well briefed. Every day, the British government will send her a stack of papers on government issues, and then every week the British Prime Minister will go over and have discussions with her. For if she was that well briefed and that well prepared, then you cannot turn around and say that all the crimes that the British Empire committed before her and during her reign, you cannot then say that she didn't know any of that. As I said, they committed atrocities in Kenya. They committed atrocities in Haiti. They committed atrocities in Malaya. All places where people say, no, we don't want to be governed by you. Even my own country, where it did not hit the headline, there were people who were saying, no, we want to govern ourselves. So she was the head of a major global force that suppressed people's freedom and governed them against their will until they threw them out. So as a final point, one of the things that me and my friends and other activists around, African activists around the US is we don't like it when people say, oh, the Europeans gave Africans independence. No, Africans took it. They took their independence back against the will of the Europeans. Thank you.
Oh, well, that's a whole lot. I mean, C.K. Hoffler, you have spent a lot of time in Africa, but you also you've been to school. You went to school in Europe, in Switzerland. You went to school in Canada. So you have another kind of interaction with the monarchy that most Americans have had.
Well, good morning, St. Peter and Reverend. I'm going to paint the picture this way. From grades 9 to 13, every single morning I went to a private school, a Scottish school nonetheless, in Toronto. And we had prayers every morning. And we, every single morning, had to recite the national anthem, the British national anthem. I'm just going to recite the first verse so that you know the type of indoctrination that exists in Commonwealth countries such as Canada. God save our gracious Queen. Long live our noble Queen. God save the Queen. Send her victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save the Queen. Every single morning, we had to recite that national anthem. We also, after that, not before, but after, we recited the Canadian national anthem in English and French. The point that I'm making is that the indoctrination of what it is to be a Commonwealth, the ravages of being and the impact, negative, and perhaps some positive, some believe, but I don't believe it's positive in the case of countries such as Africa, the Caribbean, Black and brown countries. I don't believe it's positive. And to some extent, I don't think it's been positive for Canada. But the indoctrination starts at an early age where you have to recite the national anthem and asking for the reign to continue over them. And so when children hear this, I remember, now I was American. One of my best friends was Liberian, and another best friend was from the Bahamas. And we used to talk about the fact that we were reciting, we had to, it was mandatory. You couldn't just not say the prayers, you couldn't recite the anthem. We were reciting this anthem and what it meant. We thought it was so hypocritical. We thought it was almost grotesque, but yet we had to do that because it was part of our school, what we did, in school. So when I fast forward, and when I've always analyzed this, and having traveled to Africa extensively, the first time I went to Africa, I was 6 years old. So having traveled and having worked on the continent in various countries as a lawyer and having represented heads of state, foreign ministries, ministries of petroleum and the like in different countries, both Anglophone and Francophone and Lusophone, I found that the hypocrisy that surrounds the glorifying of this queen is astounding. She may have been a very affable person. In other words, when she attended receptions, we see countless movies about how wonderful she was, her struggle as the queen, how she was thrust into this and all of that. But what we don't hear enough of is the tyranny with which she governed and how she managed to, because it was an economic issue, to successfully keep countries colonized, even despite decolonization. Because when you decolonize, you technically may be free. But as our great speaker said before me, the colonization, I'm paraphrasing, can continue if you don't have economic freedom and you have all of these other ties because you're a commonwealth. And that starts with a psychological mindset, the economic mindset, and it continues on. And so, of course, reparations are in order. Reparations have always been in order. But before you can even think about reparations, talk about reparations, there has to be acknowledgement of the tyrannical nature of colonization, decolonization, and will continue to exist despite the fact that so many countries are technically free, but are part of this commonwealth. And we can't separate her legacy from that. She may have inherited it, but she's the longest reigning monarch. And so could she have changed things? Absolutely. Did she change little things? Yes, she did, but she didn't change the very nature, I believe, and fundamentally, colonization.
Well, in fact, I think she transformed colonialism. And please speak to that, Mr. Queta and Attorney Hassel, and everybody, and Patilla, when we come back on the other side of the break, because the colonial countries became the Commonwealth. Back with more of the Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson in just a few minutes.
Your opinion counts. 1-866-594-HOPE. That's 1-866-594-4673.
Keep on talking.
Wait.
Hold on. Wait, just take him off because we're gonna.
All right, go ahead, Reverend. All right, I'll call you right back. I'll call you now.
Do we have Reverend now?
Reverend called me and gave me a number, but it's not going through.
Could you have a pen? Let me give you a couple of numbers to call.
He just called me and gave me a number, but it didn't go through.
Yeah, but let me just try this one.
Do we know who's with him?
No. Yeah, Bruce is.
And Bruce number 4.
Okay, that is too.
You're listening to Keep Hope Alive with
Yeah, I
Reverend
called
Jesse
that second
Jackson.
number.
Call
I'll call
1-866-594-HOPE. That's 1-866-594-4673.
Hey, Eric.
Don't judge me.
I want you to see this guy right here. There he is. Judging you. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Call us at 866-594-HOPE, 866-594-4673 as we look at the life and legacy of Queen Elizabeth. There's a lot of discussion. There's one discussion that's being held in the West. There's another discussion that's held in the global South, much of the world, indeed, throughout the Commonwealth. Indeed, now the Prince of Wales and Princess of Wales, Kate and William, made a trip to the Caribbean, 3 Caribbean countries last spring in May, and they were not well received. They were not treated rudely, but they met a lot of protest. You even saw a lot of pictures that were cringeworthy. You saw them reaching through a chain link fence, shaking hands with their subjects, little black children. It was a lot to see. And indeed, the premier of Jamaica, a young man under 50, said, well, you do know we are on our way to becoming a republic. And they were thrown off by that. And they had to make a statement about slavery that did not include an apology for it. Wow. So there's a lot that we've got to talk about. More money flows out of Africa today than flows into Africa, and it flows right on into London, into British corporations. So we need to talk about that. The War on Want report reveals the degree to which British companies now control Africa's key mineral resources, notably gold, platinum, diamonds, copper, oil, gas, and coal. It documents how 100 companies listed on the London Stock Exchange, most of them British, have mining operations in 37 sub-Saharan African countries. And I can tell you, and CK, you've had this experience too when we've gone to Africa with Reverend. You're generally the only black people on the plane, right? Right? And then when he gets on the plane, there is a chill that settles on the plane. And all of the people, all of the white people on the plane want to know, what is Jesse Jackson doing going to Africa? They want to know what you're doing going there, but they absolutely want to know, what is he up to? It's amazing. It's amazing. Oh, Ani Aqueta, and of course, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, Attorney Robert Patillo. Robert Patillo, we didn't get a chance to hear from you before we
Hey,
bring on Reverend
Reverend, that
Jackson.
number didn't come in, so I'm gonna lock you in. Hold on, Reverend. Hold on.
I think I put it this way. And I want to know how terrible the British Empire was. The slave masters who enslaved Africans here in America, they had to revolt against the British. Because the British were too cruel for them. The fact that the people who owned and enslaved us here had to revolt from the British, to give you an idea of who the British were as an empire. I think something like only 22 to 26 countries on the face of this earth have never been invaded by Great Britain. Indeed, if the things the British Empire had been doing in Africa and in India, Southeast Asia, Central South America, the Caribbean, and the things that had been done by the British Empire during the reign of Queen Elizabeth had been done to Europeans, we would be celebrating Queen Elizabeth the same way that people celebrate Hitler. But because she was only exploiting and killing and massacring Black and brown people in the global South, we talk about how nice her hats were and how wonderful and dignified she was, while stealing all the resources from people around the globe. The diamond inside of her crown is an ancient sacred relic from India that was in the shield of one of their greatest leaders when he went into battle. The diamond inside the scepter that she walked around with. The heart of Africa, it was worth something like $400 million, just that individualized diamond. So to see them parading around in gold that was bought with the blood of our ancestors, diamonds bought with the blood of our ancestors, and the continued domination that they have today, you can change the name of an empire, but when you keep the mechanics in place, at the end of the day, you are still maintaining the same mercantilism system that we've seen for the last several hundred years. And the people who have fought against that system have still been demonized in history. Whether it's the Mau Mau, whether it's the people who stood up around the world to fight against the British Empire, those people are still demonized in history because they write that history. So I think that this is an occasion for the formerly colonized world to stand up together and start saying, hey, brothers in India and Pakistan, y'all have the same issues that we're having in Jamaica and Barbados, and they're having the same issues that the Aborigine are having in Australia, which is the same issues that we're having as Black people in America. And if we unite and hold hands and make demands and go to the World Court, go to the United Nations, go to the IMF, go to every organization there is on this planet, and in a unified voice, demand from these people our reparations. Not just here as African Americans, but in every single decolonized nation on earth. That is the only way that we make progress. Watching King Charles say all these sacred rights to take over the powers of this empire, it literally infuriated me, the disgustingness of this, that they still are profiting from all that they've stolen from around the world. I was watching a bank heist on a global scale. And I think that this should be the thing that unites the brown world, to put down our petty differences and stand up and fight back against the colonial powers who still exploit us till this day. Let's put it this way. The British Empire is the inspiration for every single alien movie you've ever seen. It's been seared into the consciousness of this entire planet. This idea of people showing up on ships with advanced weapons and enslaving the planet. That is the British Empire. You can call them aliens, predators, or Thanos. They're talking about the crown of the monarchy.
Reverend Jackson? Yes, Mr. Aqueta, please go. Yes.
I just want to commend my sister and especially my brother for the way. I wish I had put it so well. I felt like saying amen to that. Amen to that. One point, one of his many points, brown and Black people, they need to come together. and speak with one voice, because after all, we are the majority of the humans on the face of the earth, and we have been abused for at least the last 500 years. And if we can come together about that, what else can we do? There is some rays of hope. Recently in Ghana, the president of Ghana brought together all the different communities in the African diaspora that are insisting on reparation. So for the first time, sitting president of a country has said, okay, we are all going to demand our reparation in one voice. A conference was held in Ghana last month, and Ghana's president took that charge on. What I would like them to do is get the entire African Union behind it and present that. And just one other comment on reparations, then I will step off and listen.
No,
You know, reparations are not even enough. If I come to your house and steal $1,000 from you, will anyone say, oh, it's just that I should return $5? No, I must return the entire $1,000, and then I must be fined for the crimes, and then I must also make everything whole. So the reparations is just the first start to what we must demand. And by the way, the African generations that preceded us, in the last 500 years, they have done a fantastic job. And therefore, we, the Africans who are people of African descent who are alive now, we have a huge responsibility to start this conversation to let the world know the crimes that were committed, who committed them, and then insist that they do what is necessary. And again, reparations is just a small first step in that long journey. But I'm so honored to be on the program, and I'm very honored to be with my sister and my brother.
Reverend Jackson, you've been listening. I'm so glad that you're with us, and so glad that your therapy is going so well. He's been working very hard, everyone, and he is walking on his own power. It's a wonderful thing to see. So, what do you make of all of this, Reverend? Because I can tell you, whenever you get on the plane, see, I'm behind you. These people get so upset when they see you get on the plane going to Africa, Reverend.
I heard you very well. Let me say to you, my friend, on a queen and woman, she may pick the last 70 years, know her as on foot, witness smiling. I don't know what's happening behind this thing. It's fair to say that we're trying to side, shoot this apartheid, that's a good thing. But the British Empire has been faithful upon their own half of the world. The United States, and in fact, all of the British, this was a finish with everything against the empire.
You know what? Hold on, Reverend. We need to get you. We're gonna put you on hold. We need to get you on another phone because we're getting every other word, and we need to get everything that you have to say. Many people are tuned in this morning and they want to hear what you have to say, Jeremy. Let's put Reverend on hold and let's get him on another phone. Where do we go from here now, Robert Patillo? Because now a lot of people are being criticized for being critical of the British Empire and the crimes that were committed. I mean, maybe because, and it's always, I say under the cover of darkness and underneath the frills of femininity, to be stereotypical, you can even do more damage. I mean, look at what Britain was able to do with Margaret Thatcher at the helm. I mean, look at what happens, when you brown up imperialism. Look at what happens. I mean, we saw the transformation of colonialism into the Commonwealth. That's what happened, Robert. Or do you think I'm misreading that?
Not at all. Let's understand how deeply every person on this planet has been infected with this white propaganda disease of monarchical imperialism. from the time that you were born, they start pumping into your brain this idea that you need to be a princess as a woman on this planet, on the entirety of planet Earth. They're talking about a European white princess that maybe somebody from the monarchy might ride by on horseback like Cinderella and pick you up from obscurity and bring you into the castle and make you a princess. The new version of that would be Meghan Markle or Princess Kate or Princess Diana to give this idea of the subjects of the colonial empire. So one day they can be rescued by a prince and made a princess. Every single movie that you watch, if it's set in ancient Rome, they got a British accent. If it's set in outer space, they got a British accent. If it's set in Middle Earth, they got a British accent. If they ride in a dragon, they have a British accent because they want to make sure that you know the language and the voice, the lingua franca of the people in charge are going to be British. They want to make you understand that the head of the church, because when Charles made his oath this week, he is the protector of the realm, but also the protector of the Church of England. That the God himself that you pray to are the British, and they infect your minds with this. As CK said, they make you recite and sing along to God Save the Queen. May reign forever, and may the empire never die. So it's going to take a global cleansing of white supremacy. We talk about white supremacy here in the United States. This imperial British white supremacy is on a whole different level. This is that pure, this is that uncut white supremacy that they're teaching you. They are teaching you that God himself came down and told us by the divine right of kings that it is our job to oversee all of y'all on this planet. You see, me and God, we got this one-to-one relationship. He told us we in charge of y'all. And we need to take everything because we need to be rich in England the way that God is in heaven. And by seeing me as being rich here in England, you are seeing how rich God can be in heaven. And we have convinced people of that around this planet. So it's going to take a global cleansing of this white supremacy mindset that starts by bringing down the last monarchies that exist around the world. I don't care if you call it a constitutional monarchy or not, it is a perversion. And then it's going to take, as I said, the black and brown world uniting and going into all the halls of power, say to the British Empire, to the French Empire, to the Dutch Empire, on down the line. Look, it's very nice of y'all to tell us that we're free. Can we have all our stuff out the museums? Can we have all of our money back? Can we have all that stuff that Cecil Rhodes and De Beers stole from us? And getting those things back. And that's how you go from being developing nations to taking our place as leadership in this world that we belong in.
Do we have Reverend Jackson up? Okay, we're going to get him up very shortly. CK, I mean, you lived through that kind of indoctrination. We all lived through an indoctrination. But this is a little different because to see in 2022 people saying that we have a new king, we are loyal to him, to see people who are not citizens but who are subjects, I think as an American, it's just a lot, CK.
You know, Santita, it's something that we can't quite appreciate here in the United States in the same way because we have issues with our presidency, with our leadership, but we don't have a monarchy. However, it's the type of indoctrination, and we have to remember, I agree with Robert's assessment relative to, how from being a child, it's perceived that you need to be a queen. James Bond, which I'm a fan of the James Bond movies, I must say. But if you think of James Bond movies, it really is the personification of serving the queen, serving the state, serving. And just the whole concept and narrative, even in action films, of what is great, what is wonderful, is all derived from British propaganda. So I think that what we have to do, it's an international fight. It's not a domestic fight, it's an international fight, is those Commonwealth countries, including Canada, have to stand and demand a different narrative and change. But if they don't stand together and do it, there will be no change. In fact, what there will be through Prince Charles is going to be perhaps he might double down and feel from an economic standpoint, because the global realities have changed, he needs to reinforce the Commonwealth principles and exploit more. That's what we have to be concerned about. So if there is no sustained solidarity and demanding of change and tearing down the vestiges of colonialism, it will get worse. And that's going to have an impact on all of us. including the United States.
Why do you
A
keep?
question was asked,
Okay.
well, a question the court is anything can happen in the court.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have international criminal courts that prosecute, African leaders, former Soviet leaders, and leaders from all around the world.
Yes,
But they don't prosecute. I mean, there are
I'm trying to
many
reach
that feel
Rome,
that, for
like
instance, former
1925.
President Donald Trump should be prosecuted by the ICC. But the U.S. doesn't subscribe to that convention. But that's a whole nother show. But there are many people who are prosecuted for war crimes. And there are many that believe that the British monarchs should have been prosecuted for war crimes, including Queen Elizabeth. But that is something that is so taboo, that is it's almost like you are committing an act of heresy by even
Yes, I'm trying to
articulating
reach.
that. So a lot of work has to be done, but those who are most impacted
Reverend
directly,
Jackson.
the Commonwealth countries, have to stand in solidarity. Otherwise, there will be no change.
Yes.
I mean, yes, please go ahead.
And I'm enjoying the program so much. I hope I'm making a
Reverend, I'm gonna
contribution
like
because
Yes,
my
ma'am, I'm gonna
fellow
like you, ma'am.
analysts are being just brilliant.
Reverend.
Okay, let me tie the James the movies the movies to the trial. Even though I'm on with two brilliant attorneys and I'm not an attorney, but we don't even have to do it through the traditional courts. We can do a people's court. We, the people, can come together and put together a people's trial and let the world know the crimes that were committed, who committed them, and I guarantee you a lot more people will watch that because the court of public opinion can be much more powerful than the court of formal law. And also, I am so glad that you are doing this program because the note of optimism that I want to interject in this, yes, the British Commonwealth, the British Empire, and the other European empires, they have devastated the rest of the world in the last 500 years. But guess what? They have not succeeded in silencing their victims. So this program is a start. Even the point about the presidents in the Commonwealth, even those presidents, even the dictators, they have to pay attention to public opinion in their countries. So I happen to think that if we work with civil society and the people in those countries, they will put pressure on their presidents to say, we want you to take up this fight.
Hold that thought. I want you to come back to that. Got to make this hard break. Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. We finally have him up. We're going to speak with him. Really, certainly at the top of the next hour. Back with more of Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Please, everybody, like and share the show as we speak. Janae and Eric and A. King down there in Memphis. All of you. Dave Dowling, Eric Cotton, Miss Robinson, John, Mark, everybody like and share this show right now. We're giving you some information that you really need. More of Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson throughout the week. Reach out to Reverend Jackson at 773-FREEDOM. And please go to rainbowpush.org and join Rainbow Push. Back in just a minute.
Coming up, we'll have closing thoughts from Reverend Jesse Jackson right here on Keep Up
Okay,
Alive.
let's hear Reverend now.
All right, Reverend, can you hear me?
Ammo is expensive.
Okay, Reverend?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. We were getting you every other word.
Well, this is a better phone, but this one flows.
It's just I had to go
Just
through.
in the 1925.
Okay, no worries, but you sound great this morning. So what we're going to do, we have like seconds when we get back, and we'll bring you on at the top of the next hour. But you can say hello to Ni Equata, of course, and
How long will that be?
they're on right now, Reverend.
Huh?
Oh, Reverend, watch it now. They're on right now.
Okay.
Say hello to CK and to Ni Equata, and of course to Robert Patillo. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do a couple things at once.
Good morning, Reverend. You sound great this morning. How are you?
Hello.
Reverend, can you hear her?
I hear you. I hear you.
You can't hear CK?
Reverend, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, I was saying good morning. You sound absolutely fabulous. Absolutely. I just want to hear every word you say. So I'll give you a call a little bit later. But just want to let you know it's so great to hear you, hear your voice, especially on these issues that you've fought about and that you have always stood in solidarity and speaking truth to power in this. So this is an important discussion. It's so great to hear your voice on it.
And just so that you know, everybody, a lot of people tuned in this morning because they know that we're going to offer a perspective, and that we're offering a perspective that they're not hearing in corporate media. But this truly is, Reverend. I told you, you got to do something gentle. You are hurting your voice. Go, just go, Reverend. Just hum. You're scraping your vocal folds against each other. You're going to be hoarse doing that. Everyone, you all can say hello to Reverend Nee, Robert Patillo.
Hello, Reverend. Hello, Reverend. You know.
Wait a minute, Reverend.
Good morning, Reverend.
Reverend. I need you to come back into the phone and say hello to your guests. No, say hello to your guests. They're trying to speak to you.
Hey, guest. How y'all doing?
So, I mean,
We're doing well.
And the side conversations you can't do while we're on the air. You can't do that, Reverend, because we can hear everything.
I hear Patillo blowing.
No, Reverend, we can hear. Reverend, what you say is very. Reverend, stop it. Everything you say is of consequence. You can hear it on Facebook Live. That is not where we want to hear it.
I'm saying.
Okay, then. Okay.
Take a story.
No, so Nee, go on and talk to Reverend.
Hello, Reverend. It's so good to. How are you? It's very good to be on the program with you. And I just want to say to everybody that I think it's a good thing that when people see Reverend on the plane going to Africa, they get agitated. Because when you are committing a crime and you see a good cop come, you should be worried.
Well, they do get worried. They want to know, what is he doing going to Africa? Every time I've gone with him, that is, these people get so nervous, and they get a little upset.
I am very glad to hear.
They get and they want to know what you're doing going to Africa. And when you say you're going home, they look at you like they look at us like we're crazy. Oh, you can't be. You're not African. Oh, yes, I am. And, gosh.
When Reverend gets to Africa, the people there are extremely happy.
Stand by.
Stand by. Okay, how much time do we have left? Do we have?
I'm at 15 seconds.
Okay, I'll just welcome everybody.
Minute.
We have 1 minute?
Yep.
Okay. Because I don't see the.
Yeah, I can.
That's all right. No worries. I see it. We have less than that. Hey, everybody, stay tuned for the second hour of Keep Hope Alive as we talk about Queen Elizabeth, her legacy, as we talk about British monarchy, colonialism. More money flows out of Africa than flows into Africa, and much of it flows to London today. We've watched the transformation of colonialism into the Commonwealth. What does that mean? Back with more Keep Hope Alive. Calls at 866-594-HOPE. Back in just a minute.
For listening to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. For more information on upcoming shows and guests, please visit our website at www.keephopealiveradio.com.
Hello. Hello.
Reverend, please speak up.
Huh?
Please speak up.
Yes, I'm ready.
Reverend, I keep telling you, you're hurting your voice by doing that. That is not, no singer in the world would ever do that. Ever. I keep telling you that. Don't do that. You're hurting your voice. I'd be hoarse too if I rub sandpaper up against my vocal folds, which is what you're doing.
Hello.
I don't know.
Okay, stand by. We're coming up.
Stand by.
and welcome to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily the views of this station, but strictly of our host and his guests. To speak with Reverend Jackson live, call toll free 1-866-594-HOPE. That's 1-866-594-4673. And now, the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the second hour of Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'm Santita Jackson. Reverend Jackson joins us. It's a joy to be with you today, September 11th, 2022, as we remember those who were lost in the attacks upon the Pentagon and the World Trade Center, as we remember the brave souls who took down the plane in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, to prevent an attack upon the White House. Oh, what an awful day that was. It will stay with us forever. And we pray for the families who are still coping today with their losses. God bless you, everybody. Welcome to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson as we discuss the life and legacy of Queen Elizabeth and her 70-year reign and British monarchy. Many people are saying you mourn the Queen, but you do not mourn her empire. Indeed, the empire is ongoing. The Commonwealth, which 94% of those countries are in Africa and Asia. They're in countries of color. The people who give her money are African and Indian people and indigenous people. That having been said, they were in line to put a person of color at the head of the Commonwealth. But one of the last requests of the Queen a couple of years ago at their last big meeting was that these people put her son in charge. So here we are. Here we are. What does this mean? The London Stock Exchange, the overwhelming majority of the money that is on that stock exchange comes out of the colonial countries. The Commonwealth is the old colonialism. That is what we have today. In fact, some people, one of the headlines was that the colonialism of the 19th century is the Commonwealth 2.0. So what do you think about that, everybody, as we get the word that Britain destroyed records of their colonial crimes? This is an article that's 10 years old from The Guardian, everybody. Call us at 1-866-594-HOPE, 1-866-594-4673. We're going to get some thoughts from Reverend Jesse Jackson. We get on the other side of the break. Joining this tremendous panel, Nia Akweta and attorney Robert Patillo. He will be on WAOK this afternoon from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. Attorney C.K. Hoffler has her own show on WAOK every Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and she's on my show, on the Santita Jackson Show, on Legal Q&A with CK every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Central Time, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Phyllis Bennis, one of the great internationalists of our time from the Institute for Policy Studies. Reverend Jackson was so eager to have this wonderful panel with us today. Got a lot to talk about. We want you to reach out to Reverend throughout the week. Join Rainbow Push. Go to rainbowpush.org and just join. Just join. We just need your support. We need you to be part of the movement, everybody, as people around the world are awakening and moving toward true peace and freedom and equality. That's probably what this debate is about today. So let's talk about it. Call us at 866-594-HOPE, 866-594-4673. Let's talk about Queen Elizabeth, the British monarchy, colonialism, imperialism, and freedom, reparations. Back in just a minute.
I'll be with you. Oh, yes, he does. Yes, I will.
Secret. 1-866-594-HOPE. That's 1-866-594-4673.
Central banks are increasing their gold reserve due to increasing global financial crisis concerns. Billionaires like Ray Dalio and giant fund
Reverend.
companies like Goldman Sachs are turning to
Okay, joining the panel is Phyllis Bennis.
Historically, gold's biggest rally happened after
You want to
the
say
biggest
hello?
recessions in history. In fact, after the 2007-2009 recession,
Reverend.
gold was 50.6%. Wealth of entire countries are being protected
Reverend,
by
are you
gold.
there?
Wealth of billionaires are being protected by gold. Everyone who knows is using gold to keep
Reverend,
their
are you there?
And Noble Gold Investments can help you protect your own wealth
Reverend?
too with gold. It'll take.
Reverend.
Yeah.
can you hear Phyllis? Can you say Phyllis Bennett? Can you say hello to Reverend again, please?
Good morning, Reverend Jackson. Great to be with you.
Reverend, can you hear people? Can you hear people individually? He keeps doing that to his voice. Keep him on hold until he works it out. Phyllis, in the meantime, you can say hello. Put him on hold. In the meantime, Phyllis Bennett, we've got Attorney Robert Patillo, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, and Nia Queta, who, of course, you know. So everyone, consider yourself, say hello.
Hi, Phyllis.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Keep him down.
I can't.
You can't?
Robert.
Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. Bring him back up.
Sir.
Reverend?
Yes.
Reverend, I need you to respond to people when they speak to you, because I need to make sure, one moment, that you can be heard, that you can hear. Because if you can't hear, I need to put you on another phone. Okay?
I can hear you now.
Okay, then. That's why I need you to respond. Say something, whatever you want to say. Say something. Say hello to Phyllis Bennett first.
Hello.
Reverend, say hello to Phyllis Bennett.
Georgia.
Reverend, say hello to Reverend. Stop.
UNCK is one if I can together.
He will do. Can you hear me, Reverend?
Yes.
Okay, then please stop and respond. Say hello to Phyllis Bennett, please. He heard you, Reverend. Reverend, I'm trying to work out something for the show right now. I need to make sure that you can hear everybody on the line. Please respond. Okay. Phyllis Bennett, say hello to Reverend, please.
I'm here, Reverend. It's great to be with you.
How are you, my brother?
That's Reverend. That's Phyllis. Can you hear Phyllis Bennett, Reverend?
I can't.
Okay, then. Attorney Hoffler, can you say hello to Reverend?
Good morning, CK. CK, please, you and Phil call me after broadcast, okay?
CK, are you still there? I know CK has
very
to
much,
yeah. No, I'm trying to see if CK is still there, Reverend.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. No worries. Attorney Patillo?
Good morning.
Okay, Reverend.
I'll call you up to Reverend.
Thank you. He will call you, Reverend. Reverend Nee, say hello to Reverend.
Yes. Hello, Reverend.
You and CK give me a conference call, okay, Robert?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Okay. Reverend, they heard you. They will call you after the broadcast.
Okay.
I'm going to drop these papers off to you once I'm done on my way home. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, Reverend, I just need you to respond because I need to make sure that you can hear. Because we've had so much trouble. So everyone, when I speak with you, I'm doing a mic check constantly because sometimes we lose people. We're not on phones anymore here. We're in cyberspace. It's a different system, and a lot of people have been having trouble with it. Okay, so thank you. Stand by. We're coming up, Reverend. I'm coming to you directly. Give you a couple of minutes, and then we're going to go to Phyllis and the rest of the panel. Thank you.
You're listening to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Call 1-866-594-HOPE. That's 1-866-594-4673.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. We've been talking about how to get beyond colonialism and Commonwealth. Indeed, more and more countries are leaving the Commonwealth. They want to be republics. They want to stand on their own. But that is a complicated process, as we have seen. And so we're talking with Nia Queta, one of the premier Africanists and internationalists in the world. We're so excited to have him with us today. Attorney Robert Patillo. You can hear him on WAOK this afternoon from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time, Southeastern Regional Director of Rainbow Push, the chair of Rainbow Push, former president of the largest and oldest Black Bar Association in the world, the National Bar Association, Attorney C.K. Hoffler. You can see her on Court TV throughout the week, and you can hear her on my show at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Wednesdays, but she has her own show on WAOK. at 11 o'clock every Tuesday. And of course, Phyllis Bennis from the Institute for Policy Studies. We're so excited that she's joining us. Before we hear from you, Miss Bennis, let's go to Reverend Jackson. Reverend, we're so glad that you're with us today. We got you on a good line. Your thoughts about Queen Elizabeth. Reverend Jackson, your thoughts about Queen Elizabeth and her legacy? And the discussion that's been revived about colonialism and monarchy, the British monarchy in particular. Reverend Jackson? Okay, can you, are you there? Okay, please. Your thoughts on Queen Elizabeth?
But now,
Reverend, we're on the air.
on the Queen, Africa is living 70 years here at the state. On the spectrum, jewels, diamonds, and gold came from Ghana, by the way. She represents, symbolizes the highest aspirations of British Western people. On the other hand, while we mourn her, we must reject the empire she presided over. America had to break away from Britain to become a nation.
Absolutely.
2 centuries.
Mm-hmm.
This empire was as big as the Department of State in America inside the compound of our embassy. So we must put in perspective her living. She's been a positive force for women power 70 years. She survived a lot of stuff. It's also, they don't have much power. Charles had to say, well, I give up some of my commitment. In fact, with environmental change and all that, I'm king now. King have to in this age, have to make king-like sense. He's free to be a king. But if he's following the right-wing British government, he too would be dumped in history. I hope he stands up, and I met him in Kenya and Ghana and South Africa. He didn't have a sense of what people are, and needs to see some sign of that as king.
Well, I mean, can monarchy and democracy coexist? I mean, I've seen that conflation, and that just doesn't. They can't coexist, Reverend.
The monarch cannot coexist. But you have to earn your way up. He was born in a way that he inherited power. Democracy involves everybody has a fair shot. All the people still on the rock, crying and all that. They too much have a shot at being head of the state. If the Commonwealth had voted, it wouldn't have voted for Charles. They would have voted for a black man, which would have been another complication for Britain.
Or a populist. Phyllis Bennis, your thoughts about this history? I mean, because it does. When we look at colonialism, British monarchy, many people say, okay, this is a black-white issue, or it's an Indian white issue, but it really is not. I mean, you have Northern Ireland. That's a huge conflict today, and CK, who has lived in Canada, said, well, I think Canada's got a lot to answer for, because you had Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, signing papers affirming the ascension of King Charles III.
Absolutely. This is a global reality. The notion of empire, the notion of imperialism. I have no doubt when we talk about Queen Elizabeth that she was dutiful, she was committed to her family, she was smart, she had a great sense of humor, she adored her children. All of that was true of my mother too. But that's not why Queen Elizabeth is being mourned the way she is, both inside the UK and globally. And I think that has to go back to this question that we're just talking about. That she represented the last link to the height of British colonialism. After World War II, you had Britain emerging as one of the 5 permanent members of the new United Nations. They suddenly got a few nuclear weapons, less than any of the other Nuke 5, as we might call them. But nonetheless, they joined the nuclear weapons club. And the empire continued even as decolonization exploded into a much bigger, faster trajectory around the world, most visibly in Africa, but in other parts of the world as well. And you had, after that, the Queen was then ruling over a still wealthy, because of all that colonial plunder, but really a diminished middle power country
where the once permanent imperial sun that supposedly never set on the British Empire, the sun had set. The empire was over. And she presided over those last vestiges of empire in the 50s and 60s. The new King Charles doesn't inherit that reality, that symbolism. And you know what's extraordinary here, there's this tradition that we keep hearing about, that the royals never comment on political issues, on the issues of the day. They don't engage with politics or comment on politics. But they do, that's a tradition, it's not a law. And they do make certain decisions. There was a big article this morning, I'm not sure why we were supposed to think this was important, but apparently the Queen had decided in her last days to give Diana's tiara, the diamond tiara, not to the new Princess of Wales, Prince William's wife, Kate, but instead to their daughter. Now, I have no idea what the symbolism of that is, if there's any, or why we're supposed to care about it. But she could have, for example, decided that the jewels should be returned to the colonies from which they were taken. The giant diamond from which the crown jewels were cut belongs to India. It doesn't belong in London. And she could have said that. Back in 1968, when Enoch Powell made his famous Rivers of Blood speech, that racist diatribe against immigrants, against anyone from the colonies, against any people of color, even the New York Times called that speech a bizarre colonial revenge fantasy. She could have said, you know what, I can't allow that to go unanswered. So in my next public event, I won't mention his name, but I'll give a speech about how wonderful my country is because we welcome immigrants of all races. It wouldn't be true, but she could say that as a model for people to follow. She didn't do that. She chose not to do that. So the symbolism of the Queen has to be kept central to this notion of how imperialism and colonialism were popularized around the world, were legitimized around the world. And what we see now is the question of, in this now indisputably post-colonial era, is there going to be an effort towards reparations, towards some kind of, even an apology, which we haven't seen yet, for the ravages of British colonialism around the world?
Do you think that an apology is necessary? I mean, certainly people who've been colonized want it. They desire it.
It should have been the least response from these travels around the world when, in the period of the Commonwealth, before the Commonwealth, there should have been, yes, an apology for stealing the wealth of these countries, for the deaths, for the killings of so many of the people of the colonies, the enslavement of people from the colonies. You know, there should be an apology. Now, is that sufficient? Of course not. But once an apology is made, it can set the stage for social movements. I don't put this on the royal family. I don't expect them to do it. But if there were an official apology from the government, from the royals who are supposedly not part of the government, that would help as social movements that are so active in Britain today try to challenge the ongoing legacy of colonialism that still exists.
I mean, what about that Niaquete? I mean, do you think that Niaqueta, excuse me, what should happen next? I mean, what do you think King Charles III should do?
Much, and it's wonderful to be on another program with my esteemed colleague and friend Phyllis. And thank you, Phyllis, for your brilliant analysis again.
Great to hear from you, Nick.
The last point that you added threw me off about King Charles, because I think where Phyllis was going with that, or where I'm going, is let's not wait for the royals, okay? Even, yes, first and foremost, royalty and monarchy don't comport with democracy. But even the royals understand that they must have the support and the adulation of the people. We saw that happen when Diana died, and this queen herself had to retreat from her remoteness and say, yes, I care about Diana too. So they need public opinion. So I think what Phyllis just mentioned about the social movements in Britain, as I'm sitting here listening, I'm thinking that is a great idea. If the social movements in Britain say, look, this country belongs to us, so we are going to march and say, we, the people of Great Britain, we are going to issue the apology, okay? And the other thing I was telling friends is, yes, we should focus on the British. They did a lot of terrible things. I was born into the British Empire in what was then called the Gold Coast. So I'm not letting them off the hook, but it was not just the British. It was the Portuguese, the Spanish, the Germans, the French, the Danes, the Dutch. It was all these Europeans. And the reason that I say that is people might remember that the current king of Belgium went to Kinshasa, following up on the return of Patrice Lumumba's tooth. And he said, well, I'm here. The things that were done were not good, but what I'm offering is not an apology. If we are waiting for apology from British royalty or European politicians, we won't get to that. And the importance of justice, the importance of telling the truth, the importance of historical reckoning is too important to leave it to these people who actually plundered the world and plundered Africa. So I think we should actually focus on what the people can do in Britain, what we, the people around the world, can do, because even dictators are afraid of the sentiments of their people. So let's do it from the bottom up.
Well, I tell you what, we have a lot of people who are weighing in. Abraham Arcila Corino says accepting a kingship is like accepting that there are human beings who can be enslaved. There's a lot of things going through people's minds. Janae Love Anderson says apologies are not enough. Renee Criswell said, yeah, an apology with some reparations, and on and on. That's a very interesting set of sentiments, Reverend Jackson, that we're hearing.
And the monarchy cannot coexist. They don't coexist in Britain. They are held by a symbol of state, epitomizing British aspirations.
But Reverend,
like her, well, dressed like her.
We want to be like her, because if you turn on cable news this morning, American cable stations, it's as if we are all British.
America is the bright child of Britain. America broke away from the parent. From American, that's the American Revolution was against the British.
Well,
and that he'll be meeting with the Prime Minister once a week, and they're not stepping too far away from the government policy because they exist as a creature of the state. In other words, Tony Blair and others challenge the power of the throne. If they speak out too much, they get thrown out the house. They really put the welfare in a real sense. Owned by the state. And therefore, the discussion is live in Britain today about taking some of the wealth and giving to the poor. And those kind of discussions, you won't hear this week, but they'll come up.
So, I mean, Phyllis Bennis, the British Commonwealth still oversees 2.5 billion people, 60% of whom are 29 and under. 94% of them are African and Asian countries. I mean, it's 21 African countries, 8 Asian countries, 13 Caribbean and American.
And Nkrumah and Ghana were away from Britain. America, George Washington, were away from Britain. At one point, half the Earth's population was ruled by the British.
Well, Reverend, there's a wonder.
Just for some that was on Britain. The sun was
well, the sun has not set on the British Empire. I mean, the fact is, there's an Irish nationalist, Kevin Cahill, who wrote a book, Who Owns the World? And he makes the case that she owns 1/6 of the world's landmass. She's the only human being who owns whole countries. That's the power of the Commonwealth, Nee. I mean, this she is not some. I'm sorry, Phyllis. She's not some benign figure, right?
No, absolutely not. But I do think that the Commonwealth no longer is in thrall to the British monarchy as it once was,
Okay.
because Britain is no longer the economic power that it once was. It's barely bigger economy than France. Germany dwarfs the British economy, and Germany has been defeated in all of its colonies. It no longer has any colonial territories. So one of the effects of that is this transition from the early monarchy periods to that of 20th century and now 21st century capitalism. So that the way money and power around the world is distributed and controlled isn't the same as it used to be. So I would contest the idea that the Queen actually has any operative control over those over the countries of the Commonwealth. The power comes from military and economic power, and in that context, the U.S. has far more power and influence over those countries, the countries of the British Commonwealth, than the British Crown does. So, I think part of the issue is maintaining the symbolism. I think that's part of the reason for the deep mourning of the Queen's death, is that she's the last remaining link to that era when the British Crown did own half the world, did control whole countries in a way that, as Nee just said, so many other colonial powers did as well. All the European countries, the white settler colonial countries, the US, Canada, Australia, Israel, the white colonials were in a very different position.
I mean, Robert, your thoughts. You'll be talking about this today, Robert.
Absolutely. And just to add to all the points that have been made, if you look at the total wealth that has been stolen out of the ground, of the human capital that has been stolen out of lands across the globe, it's far past the time that we stop looking towards Europe and European inbred monarchies to give us reparations. Now that we control our own governments, we control our own foreign policies, we have our own universities, etc. It's time to make demands of such, because if nations across the quote-unquote developing world, I hate that term, because what they're not doing, they're not developing, they're recovering. They're recovering from colonialism. They were developed for thousands and thousands of years before Europe ever existed. They are recovering from what happened to them. They're not developing. But if the entirety of the previously colonialized world simply said, well, either you give us everything you owe us back, or don't come here for oil, don't come here for chocolate, don't come here for coffee. We will refuse to trade with you. We're seeing this happen. We're seeing the BRIC Alliance. We're seeing OPEC. We're seeing the Organization of African Unity. We're seeing groups break away from Europe as being the fulcrum point of where world trade and where world economics happen. And if you cut that vestigial limb off, then they will have no choice but to come back and beg us to give us reparations, to give us back what they stole from us, because they will need to do that just at the price of admission to have access to food and water and oil and coal and the things needed to survive in that godforsaken continent of Europe, because they long ago ran out of resources there. That's why they started colonizing the rest of the world. So if you don't want to give us back what you owe us, then don't come here for food, water, gold, oil, and everything else. We'll handle it among ourselves.
Everybody. Yes, I got about 20 seconds.
Yeah. Macron, President Macron was just in Algeria. And why did he go there? Because in the coming winter, Europe and France need gas. So he has gone back to the country that they abuse, Algeria, and saying, okay, help us get more gas. Nigeria is building a pipeline to send gas to Europe. I agree with Attorney Robert. What if we say, no, we are not giving it to you until you account to...
Well, no, hold that thought. Hold that thought till we get to the other side. Have a hard break. More of Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. RainbowPush.org. Join us throughout the week.
Your opinion counts. 1-866-594-HOPE.
This is 2 minutes, right?
That
This
is
is 2 minutes.
1-866-594.
Santina, I'm hearing a consistent echo on my phone. Is that coming through on your end?
You know what? It's coming from us because we're having to put you on the speaker. I am so sorry about that. In order for the audience to hear us on Facebook Live.
Oh.
Yeah, we're trying to work on it.
Yep.
Now, there are no telephones here. Now, everything's done through the computer.
Too high tech.
It really is. It really is. Reverend, are you still there?
Yes, and my phone problem.
Reverend?
You say he has phone problems.
Do you want us to call you back on another line?
This is a landline. We called him on.
Can we call you? Can we call you back on the landline?
No, this is the landline.
This is the landline. Well, okay. What line would you like? Would you like for us to call you back on another line?
No, he just saying.
Who? Shelly's phone or Bruce's phone?
They're not with him.
Oh, they're not with you? Okay.
I think he just said he had to go.
Okay.
Santina?
Okay. You have to go, CK?
I'm going to have to run. Yes, I have to run. I pushed back just a little bit, but I'm going to have to run. But I did want to say this is just a great show. I'm glad. I hope we continue this discussion.
Well, I'm going to continue it tomorrow. You know that. Well, because as I watch all of the pomp and the circumstance, and look, let me tell you something. I got to tell you, I get it because I understand when people who have such a large footprint pass away, this sort of thing happens. I mean, not to be morose, but I've got all the major networks, they've been calling us for the past 20 years to get pictures because they want to be ready when Reverend goes. When you work for these news organizations, and I've been at Fox, there are obituaries for certain people, so if anything happens, they're ready to go. So I get that. But I think that because of the social, political, and cultural implications of her life in the British Empire, we have to have this conversation. It's very, very important. Would you like to say something really quickly before we go? I mean, we're about to come right up. So just less than a minute.
Okay.
You can close yourself out.
Okay.
Hey, everybody, having a stirring conversation with Phyllis Benesni Equata and attorney Robert Patillo. You can catch him on WAOK this afternoon from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time, Southeastern Regional Director of Rainbow Push, and, of course, the chair of Rainbow Push and the former president of the National Bar Association. This is the largest and oldest Black bar association in the world, more than 65,000 lawyers. She was their president. And of course, you can see her on Court TV throughout the week. And she does analysis on ABC, MSNBC. Absolutely brilliant. CK Hoffler, your thoughts? You have lived in Switzerland. You have lived in Canada. You've had to sing God Save the Queen. You've experienced this in a way that we have not.
When I recited it this morning, I recited it by heart. That's the irony. And that was over 40 years ago. And yet I can recite it by heart because I said it every day. We have to really pay attention to another narrative. And in this country, we tend to be myopic. We say, it doesn't concern the United States, so we don't have to worry about it. It does concern the United States. What happens in Britain, what happens in the Commonwealth impacts the United States in terms of trade, in terms of resources, in terms of human resources. We have to be concerned about things that happen in Africa, the Caribbean, because we are inextricably linked to those countries on the continent of India and all of the Commonwealth countries, quite frankly. So we have got to remember that being a Commonwealth is just a different way of articulating some form of colonialism. We have to remember that. That's just me saying it. People may disagree, but I believe that is the case. And we have to call it how we see it. And those Commonwealth countries and their citizens, whether they do it with the People's Court as suggested, or whether they do it in a different way, need to stand in solidarity because this is the time. We have a changing of the guard. We have to come into this century, not the previous century, and bring about change. I don't know that Charles is going to be the one to do it, but there's a generation behind him Princess Diana's children or son, and I think that we might be able to, they may be able to put pressure on or to bring a new way of thinking to the monarchy. At least I'm claiming that this week. But if we don't say anything, if people don't stand in solidarity, it will not happen. It will just be business as usual, and it could be worse.
Mm. Well, it's interesting because, remember, Diana herself was not a Republican. She was a monarchist. She said, oh, no, I don't want to end the system. I just want everybody to be nicer. And I think her sons don't want to end the system. Even Harry, who's over here, when she and her husband send out notes or when they entreat Charles Schumer and our Congress to vote a particular way, she signs it Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. So I think we need to be real clear on who they are and not just what they represent, who they are. I mean, this is the most influential, most powerful, wealthiest family on earth. And that is something that is never said. And that is when you get to England, you hear the Irish Republicans say that all the time because they're having a big internal fight with them. So, it's a lot. It's a lot. Everybody check out CK Hoffler throughout the week. Go to Court TV. Let them know that you want to see more of her. I think she needs a show, but that's just me. So, yes.
We'll say this without giving details. I am in the process of recording a pilot.
Yay.
And when we have all the details, and it will be a legal analysis, initially 3 pilot shows, and then ultimately a pilot in French that I am anticipating will broadcast internationally. So I have a lot on my plate in terms of, I believe, speaking truth to power and addressing issues. And all of our morning stars, including you, Santita, our collaboration, I hope that we will continue because I love the perspective that we bring, what Reverend does every single day. I stand on his shoulders, we all do. We're able to do this kind of commentary because he sets the table for us.
Absolutely.
So, Reverend, I'm appreciative to you. And we just have to keep hope alive, Reverend.
And provides a platform. And we thank God for that. We thank God. And we thank God for you. Let me get back to you, Nee, because you were making some points on the other side of the break. And I didn't want us to lose them. I want you to be able to make your points.
Thank you so much. Yes. And I want to thank Attorney CK too for her leadership and the analysis she has done. The point that I was making is that, where the countries in the Commonwealth, this is where we have to link it to democracy. All the leaders there, they remain in the Commonwealth. Phyllis rightly pointed out that the British economic power has diminished. But still, the heads of these countries in the Commonwealth still bow to the British and do what they want. As has been pointed out, there was an idea floated a few years ago that after the Queen died, the next head of the Commonwealth should be from the majority, maybe a leader of color. And the Queen did not agree, and of course, the majority accepted her decision. So these leaders still feel intimidated by Great Britain. And you have British companies there, you have American companies there. So you can understand that. But my key point is this is where democracy comes in. If the people of Ghana, the people of Nigeria, the people of South Africa, the people of Kenya, and just restricting myself to Africa, if the people pour into the streets and say, we want you, our leader, to make these demands of the British, as Attorney Roberts was saying, and if they don't account for what they have done, then we want you to pull out of the Commonwealth. If the peoples in these countries will say that to their leaders, it will happen. The only way it will not happen after they say it is that it will scare the British so much that they will make the changes demanded. So in this program, what I have learned and what I've been inspired to think is we have to intensify democracy both in Britain and in the Commonwealth countries so that the push comes from below. Let's not put our hopes in Diana's children. If they do the right thing, let it be a bonus. We, the people, must push for it. because there is no country without people. Charles would not be a king if the British did not have people. So the power actually does reside in the people. They must realize that and activate it and use it and push it for good changes.
And I think sometimes in all of this discussion, Phyllis Bennis, we sometimes forget that we're the ones with the power. Phyllis.
It's so interesting, following up on something that Nice said just now about how kings and queens do or don't have power. If you look at the other so-called constitutional monarchies in Europe, in the other countries that once held significant colonial empires, for example, the king and queen in the Netherlands, nobody really pays much attention to them. They don't live in some big palace. I'm sure they're quite wealthy, I imagine, but they don't have the kind of money that the British royal family does. They ride around town on bicycles. They don't have a huge security escort. The same is true in several of the social democratic Scandinavian countries, where they have a king or a queen or a princess, I'm not even sure, because nobody really pays attention to them. They're a kind of symbol. They come out to present prizes now and then, that sort of thing. But they're just not a major force in having any decision-making or control over the trajectory of their country. And social movements emerge that are challenging government, not the royalty, because they're irrelevant. You could imagine, it's certainly true that actual monarchies with power are completely incompatible with democracy, period, full stop. It's also true that symbolic monarchies that don't have real power can exist if people like the pomp and circumstance. We have our own version of it here, for God's sakes. We don't call it a monarchy, but all the stuff about, the flags and the anthems and all that stuff, we do the same thing in this country. And that can be relevant or irrelevant depending on the power of people and social movements. So, I think that the key is not, does the monarchy exist, but what power does it have or not have? The government in the UK could pass laws appropriating the lands and money of the royals. That's how power works. The Queen's Guard or whatever is still under the control of generals and admirals and whatever that are appointed by governments, not by the Queen or the King now. So it's, the symbolism of it, I think, almost makes it easier in the case of Britain to show the disparity away from democracy. That this can't be a democracy when this one family has this inordinate amount of power. It should make it easier for people in the UK and around the world, in the Commonwealth and elsewhere, to challenge this because it's so overt. If the challenge were to Dutch foreign policy on a certain issue in the past towards Indonesia, for instance, one of its last colonies, it would have been harder to focus that challenge on the royals rather than on the government. It was the government's decisions. That didn't give you the kind of symbolic target, if you will, to challenge that kind of power disparity. In the UK, it's naked. It's right out there in front of us. And that's what we should be talking about. I'm so glad, Reverend Jackson and Santita, that you made this the conversation for today. What a great woman Elizabeth may or may not have been. It's not about her. It's about systems. And the system of monarchy and colonialism that come together, that's what has to be challenged. It's not about the individual. We can look at what the individuals coulda, shoulda, woulda done and didn't, but it's really not about any of those individuals. It's about a system that needs to be changed, that needs to be challenged, that needs to be brought down.
Indeed, because we see the individuals come and go, Phyllis Bennis. They come and they go. But what does not change is the embargo against Cuba, right? and oh, what a grand meeting they've had up in heaven. Shay.
Israel.
Oh,
That doesn't change regardless of the shift in administration. But it's starting to change now a little bit in Congress because there's been social movements taking up the issue for the last 20 years. And that's changed things.
And you know, I think what I'm heartened by the fact that people want balance. They want justice. They want because there's a way for everybody to win. You know, that's what Lonnie Guinier talked about in her politics. She said, you know, we have to move into a mature politics in which you don't have a winner take all system, in which I win, you lose. That automatically breeds anger, contempt on one side, bitterness on the other. You know, when Reverend called for a balanced Middle East policy 40 years ago, and we took tremendous hits for that, tremendous hits. He said, oh, what a price I paid in my Harvard interview. We just kept paying prices, but it was the thing to do. And there are no regrets. Because the thing is, it's because I love you, Israel. It's because I love my Jewish brothers and sisters. I want you to be safe. And it's because I love the Palestinians. I love you, Palestine. I want you to be safe. And we have all, I think they're like a metaphor for the world, Phyllis Menace. We got to figure out how to live with one another. I mean, we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to do it. And there's a way for us to have justice and security. They're married to each other. And that really is the point. Yeah.
That's the key.
Absolutely. Robert? Oh, I'm sorry, Neil? Yes.
Yes, Phyllis was making the great point that it's not the individual, it's the system. And I think what I would add on to that is that the system actually is not working. It may have worked for even the British for the last 500 years. But if you look at the headlines today, let's say even 10 days ago before the Queen died and the mainstream media went into a frenzy, look at the headlines. Things are going bad. So even those who champion the system and benefited from it are realizing or should realize that the system is not working. We need to transform and change the system. And also the point just made that, you know, the people want justice. I say amen to that. And I can tell you that while there might be exceptions and pockets, by and large, the people do want justice. So this is the beauty of democracy because it puts the wishes of the people front and center. And of course, we have media, corporate media, who almost always want to suppress the real view of the people, and because they want to sell certain dreams so that they can get more eyes and more ears and make money. So democracy is the system, is the tool that we must use to rescue the world from a system that is no longer working. And two words as an example, climate change or climate injustice as Africa sees it.
Why do they see it as climate injustice?
Because the records have been kept. CO2, carbon dioxide, is the key global warming gas that has been put into the atmosphere that is warming the earth, it's melting the ice caps, the oceans are rising, you are getting drought, you are getting floods. When did this start? This started in the industrial age, it started in Britain. When they started making machines and pumping CO2 into the atmosphere, and it stays there and it blankets the earth and it hits the earth up. That is what is causing climate change. Now there is data that shows which countries have put the most CO2 into the atmosphere. And you can see that 90% of it has been done by the West, by the United States and Britain. I am not often caught making excuses for China because of their lack of democracy. But when it comes to global warming, they've been pumping CO2 massively only in the last 20, 30 years. So for the West to say, well, China is the leading polluter, no, you have been doing for almost 160 years. Africa, CO2 that Africa has put into the atmosphere is just about 3%. But look at Madagascar, look at Mozambique, look at Zimbabwe, look at Somalia, Look at Angola, look at Senegal, look at Nigeria, the rising seas. Africa is paying a huge price because it's being hammered by climate warming. And moreover, we are going to have COP27 in a month and a half in Egypt. We've been having 26 of them, and the Europeans and the West promised, oh, okay, we will help you, we'll give you money to undo some of the damage that we have done, and they just make the promise and turn their backs. Final thing, in Rotterdam last week, the Africans, 7 African presidents went to Rotterdam to meet with the Europeans because the Europeans have said, okay, come here, we'll talk about a little money we'll give you for you to make adaptations so that climate change will hurt you a little less. The African president showed up. There was no European president. There is no European leader there.
That says a whole lot. Closing thoughts on Keep Hope Alive. Hope you'll join me on my show on the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. We used to be Air America, now we're WCPT and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, the Santita Jackson and Friends page, and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. We'll be up at 6 o'clock in the morning, Central Standard Time. Join us tomorrow. We're going to have some more of this conversation because guess what? It's a conversation that we need to have. We're watching a great reset, the World Economic Forum. All of these people, all of these entities are involved in this, and we need to be the leaders of our own destiny. This is a real discussion. This was one of the most. There was really no more powerful a figure in the world than Queen Elizabeth. And now she has transferred at least those titles, if you will, to her son, and then to Prince William, and then to Prince Harry. Oh, don't be fooled. Blood is thicker than water, and blood is thicker than the mud. As they said, it's a family affair. They are all in the same system. How do you feel about the system? Do you feel that someone should be born and lord over you? That's really what we have to think about. More of Keep Hope Alive closing thoughts in just a few minutes.
We'll have closing thoughts from Reverend Jesse Jackson right here.
Well, we're still on Facebook Live, you all. I just think this has been such
expensive.
a great show. I have loved hearing you all this morning. Oh, really? I'm just sorry we couldn't get a good line on Reverend. The switchboard was not up at his rehab facility. So there's that. But yes.
I was watching a documentary on Angola yesterday. So about halfway through, they were talking about Angolan development, and they showed a clip from the 80s of course, the president of Angola, of course, Reverend Jackson sitting right there next to him.
Yeah. I remember that meeting. Jesse and I were sitting off to the side. Oh man! But I'm telling you, every time he gets on that plane and he goes to Africa, there is a chill that settles in because I'm back there with the proletariat and he kind of something. And boy, these folks, they want to know what is he do? What is he? Do you know what he's going to be doing there? What?
I love that anecdote, Tita. Thank you very much. I'm going to repeat that people West countries that are exploiting Africa, their representatives get worried when they see people like Reverend on the plane. I wish we could make holograms so that even when he's not on the plane, the hologram will show him on the plane. So people worry.
Absolutely. And they would never know when it was going to happen.
Oh, Phyllis, you little devilet. I'm like, this is tough. Now, Phyllis. Oh, let me tell you.
I never said that.
Yes, you did. And but when he does get on, That's what happens. I mean, these people, they are some kind of
Yeah.
upset. I am like, okay. And I noticed
What's
it
going on
as,
in the world that I don't know about?
and what does he do? You know, what does he do? What does he want? It's just like he's running for president again. What does he want? What is he going to be doing there? And what are you doing? And who are you? You know, you telling me, you know, look, I'm a black person. I'm African. Oh, no, you're not. Now, can you imagine some white person going to tell me that I'm not African?
Well, you know, Sanita, it's not even just you. I once had a debate with somebody in Washington who told me, an American, who was telling me that I had no right to debate about Somalia.
What?
What?
Who?
Yes.
Who? What?
It did happen. And he was very much in the debate, but he said, no, you don't have a right to speak about Somalia. And the only response was just be quiet and let us into him himself as well as the.
And why did he say you didn't have the right?
Because he didn't have good comebacks to the logic of my argument. So, of course, you know what they do. If they can't answer your argument, they want to shut you down. They want you to be silent.
Right. So the focus is on the messenger and not on the message.
Absolutely. Always. How much time do we have when we have like less than 2 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to give 30 seconds to everybody. When you hear my voice, that means I've got to move to the next topic because we are not next topic because we have a hard out at, what is it, at 58:26?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm coming to you, Phyllis, 30. Come to you, Robert, 30. Robert, remember, Punch Your Show. And Nee, 30. Okay.
Thank you.
Of course, of
15
course.
seconds. Stand by.
Thank you, Santita.
Oh, no, thank you. Really, you all are the best. You made the show. That's what it is.
10, 7.
Stand by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, everybody. Hey. Throughout the week, go to rainbowpush.org. Join Rainbow Push. We need your support. 773 Freedom and 930 50th Street. Join us, everybody. We need the volunteers, need your support. Closing thoughts from you, Phyllis Bennis.
Looking at the death of the last remaining link to the legacies of British colonialism and imperialism around the world, she'll be remembered for that far more than anything about her response to her children, her grandchildren, or anything else. And it's that focus that means that social movements need to take responsibility to respond now. It's not up to the royals, it's up to us.
Attorney Robert Patillo, 1 to 4 this afternoon on WAOK.
So we're going to be talking about this. We're going to be talking about the Ukrainian counteroffensive. We're going to be talking about the passing of one of the legends of Black journalism with CNN. But what I want people to remember is when we're talking about going to the Europeans to return and repatriation of all that they've stolen to us, what would have Queen Elizabeth have done? She would have showed us some warships and took it. So let's understand that we are taking the nice path. We're not going goose for gander, eye for an eye. We're simply asking for what we deserve.
Nia Queta.
Yes, and thank you. Absolutely, it's not up to the royals. It's not even up to their government. It's up to us, the people and the social movement. And yes, she has passed on. The new era.
Live with Reverend Jesse Jackson. For more information on upcoming shows and guests, please visit our website at www.keephopealiveradio.com.
Keep on going. We're still on Facebook Live. Oh.
Yes, let this be the start of the new era of push for justice, but push for justice. Let's put that era of exploitation and enslavement family behind that, through the history of it.
Amen to that. Well, I think that you reminded us that people have the power. I mean, the only reason you have royalty is because the people have given the royal family that power. And you have to decide who you want to be empowered. I think that we've got a lot of decisions to make in the 21st century and moving into this we're deep into the new millennium, everybody. We've got to make some decisions about who we are, where we want to be, and who's free and who has the right to the tree of life. I personally believe that democracy and monarchy cannot coexist. You have to make a decision. You really do have to make a decision. But Robert, you make the point. We get worked on, and Phyllis, you know it. I mean, Halloween. You want to be a princess. You want to be a queen, and even to make us feel better. To help to restore Black people in the diaspora, we say, we're just sent from kings and queens. That's not exactly true. You had kings and queens in that setup, but they didn't tell all the kings and queens over here. And you ought not need to be a king or a queen in order to feel your self-worth. The fact that God made you ought to be more than enough, really. Anyone else have any closing thoughts?
Just thank you.
Well, I just thank you, Phyllis Bennett. I just think that you are the best. Nee, I will speak with you in the morning. And Robert Patillo, I'm going to listen to you this afternoon.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Love y'all. Like and share the show.
Bye-bye.
And bye-bye. See you tomorrow
We love
morning.
you. Thank